Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right in because today we are unpacking a truly fascinating cognitive quirk that affects literally every single one of us. We're exploring the architecture of agency, and specifically, the illusion of control. We're going to look at how our brains systematically trick us about our own free will, and why that warm, fuzzy feeling of being in the driver's seat might actually be leading you right off a cliff.
Okay, let's dive right into this. I want you to picture something. We're traveling back to a really groundbreaking 1975 experiment by researcher Ellen Langer. You are handed a lottery ticket, but here's the twist. Half the people in this experiment were just handed a totally random ticket, while the other half, they actually got to personally pick their ticket. Now, later on, Langer goes back and offers to buy those tickets back from the participants. Keep in mind, mathematically speaking, every single ticket had the exact same odds of winning. It really shouldn't matter how you got it, right?
Well, as you'll see, there was a massive divide in behavior here. The people who had chosen their own tickets demanded significantly more money to sell them back compared to the folks who were just given random ones. Think about what that actually means for a second. The mere sense of having chosen the ticket created an illusion of control so powerful that it fundamentally changed how much people thought their completely randomized ticket was worth. It proves that a lot of what we experience as control isn't actual control at all. It's just a feeling. And honestly, it's a totally fabricated feeling at that.
To really grasp how this works, let's quickly look at today's agenda. First, the core illusion. Then, the brain's fake agency, followed by market mirages, health and superstitions, leadership blind spots, and finally, calibrating uncertainty.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the core illusion, defining the trap. Let's lay the groundwork for what we're actually up against here.
So the absolutely crucial point is captured right here in Langer's definition. The illusion of control is the tendency to believe you can influence outcomes that are, in reality, determined by chance. Now, we aren't just talking about a gambler pressing a button really hard on a slot machine because they feel lucky, though, hey, we've all kind of been there. This trap pops up literally anywhere that outcomes are partially random, and we happen to be the actors involved. When those two conditions are met, boom, our brains automatically start attributing way more causal weight to our own actions than the evidence actually supports.
Moving on to Section 2, the brain's fake agency, neuroscience of will. We need to zoom into the brain itself to see the evolutionary hardware making us so susceptible to this.
Feeling in control isn't just a mistake, it's actually a deeply ingrained evolutionary adaptation. The brain has a massive investment in this narrative of agency, this sense that your actions are directly caused by your deliberate intentions. And evolutionarily speaking, this makes perfect sense. Our ancestors, the organisms that genuinely believed their actions mattered, well, they were far more likely to actually take action in highly variable, unpredictable environments. That bias toward taking action is literally what kept them alive. So your brain is fundamentally hardwired to want to feel like it's the one calling the shots.
But Daniel Wagner's research reveals something truly mind-bending about this. As he outlines in his book, The Illusion of Conscious Will, the evidence suggests the action actually begins before the conscious sense of deciding. Yeah, you heard that right. Your brain is essentially acting first, and then actually, it's almost like it's doing PR for itself. It tells you a story after the fact about how you chose to act, purely to maintain that super comfortable illusion of control.
Let's zoom out now for Section 3, market mirages, survivorship bias in finance. Let's see what happens when this biological brain glitch meets Wall Street.
Active fund management actually provides one of the absolute best real-world tests of this illusion. Look at the data. Across multiple decades, the vast majority of actively managed funds actually underperform simple, unmanaged index funds once you factor in their costs. It's just math. Yet despite this overwhelming historical proof staring us right in the face, what do? We continue to pour millions upon millions of dollars into active management. Why? Simply because the fund manager's profound sense of control, and let's be honest, our own desperate desire to hand our money to someone who seems in control, completely overrides the cold, hard mathematical reality.
And this builds perfectly into what Nassim Taleb calls survivorship bias in his book, The Black Swan. Just think about who we actually see out there. A fund manager who beats the market for 3 years hasn't actually demonstrated skill over random variation at a level that guarantees future success. But they are the only ones we see. We see the lucky managers, and we immediately assume, wow, what skill! What remains entirely invisible to us is the much larger population of unlucky managers who simply vanished from the market entirely. We completely mistake survival and random luck for controllable skill.
Moving right along to Section 4, Health and Superstitions, Rituals versus Reality. Let's examine how this exact same illusion infiltrates our health choices.
So, on one hand, people performing pre-performance rituals often report higher confidence and sometimes even better performance. But it's not because the ritual has some magical physical effect, right? It's because that sense of control it creates successfully lowers their anxiety. And hey, that is instrumentally useful. However, this becomes downright dangerous when the illusion of control leads to harmful healthcare decisions. It tricks us into choosing unproven alternative treatments simply because they make us feel like an active participant. We literally reject conventional treatments that have solid medical evidence just because they don't offer that same comforting ritual. You have to remember, the feeling of controlling your health and actually controlling your health. Those are two very, very different things. Let's shift gears and look at Section 5, Leadership Blind Spots, the CEO Attribution Error. Time to see how this illusion compromises high-stakes corporate leadership.
If you ever sit down and read a batch of CEO shareholder letters, you're going to reliably see this exact pattern. Researchers actually call it the attribution error. When outcomes are great, leaders are incredibly quick to attribute the success to their own unmatched brilliance. My brilliant strategy. But the very moment outcomes turn bad, suddenly it's just, unpredictable macroeconomic headwinds to blame. They systematically take all the credit for the wins and totally excuse the losses, completely blinded by their own illusion of control.
And let me tell you, this leadership blind spot is absolutely catastrophic for an organization. Because the leader falsely believes they're fully in control, it produces massive overconfidence in their future interventions. Worse than that, it leads to a dangerous underinvestment in risk management. And finally, it creates this stubborn resistance to distributing authority. For a CEO under this illusion, delegating to others would mean sacrificing that nice, comfortable feeling of control, even if distributing that authority is exactly what would lead to vastly better outcomes for the whole company.
Finally, let's talk about the solution in Section 6, Calibrating Uncertainty, a toolkit for reality. Let's equip you with a concrete toolkit to upgrade your mental software.
Now, the main takeaway from this explainer is absolutely not that you are powerless. Accepting uncertainty does not mean passivity. You often do have a great deal of influence. Rather, the most effective people operating in high uncertainty domains are not the ones who blindly believe they have total control. The goal here is to perfectly calibrate. The most successful people out there, they meticulously distinguish between what they can actually influence and what they simply cannot, and then they laser focus their energy right there. To help you calibrate your own inner compass, here are 3 highly effective tools you can start using literally today. First up, Gary Klein's premortems. Before our project even begins, imagine it has already failed catastrophically, and then work backward to figure out what caused it. This forces you right into contact with the actual limits of your control. Second, decision journaling. Write down your exact reasoning for decisions in the moment, and later review the actual outcomes. Over time, this brilliantly calibrates your prediction skills against harsh reality. And third, embrace probabilistic thinking. We've got to stop asking, will this work, in absolutes. Instead, try asking, what is the probability this works, given similar situations, and then act based on those odds. As we wrap up today's explainer, I really want to leave you with this provocative thought to ponder. What are you falsely controlling right now? Where in your own life are you holding on to a lottery ticket, totally convinced your grip makes it more likely to win? Remember, the feeling of control is incredibly comfortable, but having an accurate map of your actual influence, that is infinitely more useful. Thank you so much for joining me today, and be sure to subscribe for more explainers every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.